Prime Day Amazon ad strategy. What's the best strategy? What are the things that you should watch out for? What are the things that can waste you money? And more importantly, what can you do about it? That's what I'm going to be walking you through today, is our before, during, and after process for Prime Day, and the way that we make sure that we are increasing sales, we are capitalizing on the shopper surge without having to waste a ton of ad dollars and completely lose all of our profits. So this is a strategy doc that you can get access to. There will be a link down in the description below. But what I want to go through is, again, we're going to talk about before Prime Day, because there's very specific things that you need to be prepping your ads for now, today, things that you should be going through and adjusting. We're going to talk about the during. What do you actually do the days of Prime Day? It's actually not exactly what you would probably think. There's only some very specific actions that should be happening the days of Prime Day. And then afterwards, after that traffic drop, how should you be readjusting your ads to maintain sort of your status quo? And again, make sure that the adjustments you've made during Prime Day are not going to hurt you. So let's go talk about the before. And note, the pre-Prime Day work is going to be the most amount of work that you're going to do. A lot of people think, when they think Prime Day, like, oh, the days of Prime Day like are the pinnacle, and that's where most of the work is happening. You will be in the account more the days of Prime Day. Again, we're going to get to the during, but the most amount of time and effort in analytics need to happen pre-Prime Day to prep your ads, to weed out all of the potential things that are going to be wasting you money the days of Prime Day. You need to get your account in tip-top shape and ready for that traffic surge. And this is stuff that you can start working through today. So I'm going to go through it. We're going to have a to-do. We're also, in each of these sections, going to have a not to do, because there are certain things that will hurt you. So the first one, we are an agency. So therefore, for us, it's really important to message our clients to get an understanding of what they plan to do, their strategy on Prime Day. If you're doing this for your brand, it doesn't matter as much. If you're a brand manager and you answer somebody else, it might be good to get this feedback. So if you are not the one in charge of the account, depending on, again, how much information you have and how much confidence you have that you're like a one-to-one and you're 100% on the same page with, kind of whoever's in charge of the account, this is probably a good idea. So the things that we go through and we get from our clients is their comfortability in the budget. Now, again, if this is your account, you can just ask yourself these questions. What am I comfortable spending? This backtracks into your goals. And sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand. Like, a lot of sellers will think, should I increase the budgets? How much should I increase them? You do want to ask that. And it's typically, somewhere between a 2x and a 5x, again, depending on your comfortability levels. But you might not be okay with going all the way up to a 5x on the budget. That's fine. Right? But you want to gauge your comfort levels and also just kind of like your resources. If cash flow is really tight, you don't have that much additional to put into your ad budget. That's okay, but you need to get crystal clear on that. Are there preferred products to focus on? Now, obviously, we're going to go through and we're going to talk about how to identify key products. What are the things that you should be looking at? We're going to give you some very specific steps there. But this also goes into the inventory. What products do you have a good inventory position for? And this will also feed into the third question, which is, are there any products we're going to be running deals on, right? If there's a specific deal, so if it's just like a Prime Day discount coupon, then maybe those are products that we want to push because the coupon would sort of follow us around. If we're running, say, a lightning deal or some other sort of deal, well, then in those particular products, the margins are probably actually going to be lower. So that should play into ad strategy. But we should be aware of what products we plan to run discounts or coupons on, because again, that's going to feed in our strategy. So once you've done all of this data gathering, you have some insights that are going to shape the rest of the analysis you're going to do. You want to identify the key products to focus on. Prime Day, think of it as a traffic and a conversion rate increaser, because it's really, it is. More people coming to the platform, more people primed to buy, which is fantastic, but that doesn't mean it's going to make a crappy product work. The name of the game and the system when it comes to capitalizing on Prime Day is to elevate what you already have proven to work through the data. So things that you can check. If you have been selling on Amazon for more than a year, you can go back and you can check last year's Prime Day data. So I would go through that. You can look at business reports, and we're going to talk about another couple things as well. You also want to check historical BSR. So there are like BSR tracking tools or things. You can look at the product's past performance and go through and say, okay, so which of my products has performed well? You also want to check products, this is key, with healthy sales, but also products that have healthy margins and healthy conversion rates. We're wanting to put our resources behind the things that we know we're going to get the best return on. So this is an entire analysis that we can do up front, and then we can go down into the ad structure and we can talk about where we're advertising, which will be in our next section. Okay, so once we know that we have our healthy products, we also can go through and we can track the search query performance report. This is another great way to say, again, we can start diving into keywords and where we know the products should best perform. We also, this is another great tip, once we kind of have an idea of the products that we want to go after, you can also identify the top 3 competitors in that category to also make sure you're targeting them aggressively in all the ad types. This kind of goes into ad structure a little bit, but again, we're shaping that based off of what products we know we're going to be focused on. It's not that you can't advertise all of the products, but if you're going to be aggressively spending on certain targets or certain products, you definitely want to be crystal clear as to like what products are going to perform the best for you so you can get the best bang for your buck. All right. Next we're going to do is we're going to check ad structure. We know our budgets. We know the products that we're targeting. So now we want to identify the top campaigns to push during Prime Day. Ideally, these are going to be single keyword campaigns. And this is going to kind of get into the don'ts in a second. But you want to go off of what you know worked. We're not doing completely new keyword research, at least not right now. If you have a couple months out, then you can start prepping for this. But if it's more last minute, we're not building up a whole campaign structure. We are maximizing the things that we have data to validate work for this product. We already validated the product's work. Now we want to validate what ad structure works well for the products. Highly suggest also adjusting the naming in your campaigns so you can use the search function, or you can just put them into a portfolio. That way, when we go through the during phase, days of Prime Day, you have a really quick spot check to hone in on the campaigns you know you should be paying the most attention to. Other things to do is check campaigns from Prime Day last year. If you have a sponsored product campaign report, you can, or if these are sponsored product ads, you can actually download a sponsored product campaign report, which allows you to go back longer than, say, the typical 90 days. You can also just look at that month, which is a little bit less specific, but you can go into like the specific campaigns, look at lifetime, and kind of identify which months were the past Prime Day, and then, you know, how does that campaign perform within that month. A little bit scientific that way, but you have a general idea. Another thing is to make sure that you're setting up sponsored display retargeting campaigns. Now, this is if you're not running any DSP. DSP retargeting is far more sophisticated, but if you're not running DSP right now, and again, we're just strictly talking Amazon console right now, then setting up and making sure that you have sponsored display retargeting, both maybe views remarketing or purchases remarketing, depending on your product and if there's like repeat purchase nature of those. Again, we're doing this for the top products, the ones that we know we want to invest most of our ad dollars in. Again, if you're testing any new targets, new campaigns, keywords, you want at least at least 2 weeks before Prime Day to initially test those. Ideally, all the initial testing should be concluded 1 full week before Prime Day. As you start to get into that Prime Day week, conversion rates are going to fluctuate. You're going to be getting inaccurate data. You want to make sure that you fully validated and tested any targets, campaigns, structures, whatever it is, well before, so we are confident in investing our ad dollars here. You do not, Prime Day is not, I repeat, not the day to fly blind. You want to be based on data, and because data is not real time inside the ad console, you have to be able to look back over the history of that campaign and say, yes, historically, these targets, these keywords have worked well for my product, and that's where you invest your ad dollars. This is another one. You want to review any automated bid rules. Now, as you get into that week, you might not want to make adjustments, but you want to make sure that you don't have any bid rules that are going to completely screw up your ad account, because they make sense during a traditional day, but they don't make sense during the days of Prime Day. Depending on how frequently your bid automations and the look back windows and how they validate and make changes. If it's a simple rule-based system, again, make sure the rules make sense, make sure the look back windows make sense. If you have a software that adjusts bids multiple times a day, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of that type of automations. It might make sense to pause automations the days of Prime Day. Be very careful. There are certain tools where if you pause things or disconnect things, it will do some sort of reset on that. Honestly, those are not really great tools. Those are not very user friendly. And if you adjust something in the tool, it completely screws up. So you want to be fully aware of how your bid automations are going. What are the rules? But this is a very crucial time, and your data is not going to be historically normal. You're going to have peaks and valleys. You're going to have a bunch of conversion rate dips followed by a bunch of conversion rate increases. And you want to make sure that your ads and your ad adjustments are keeping pace with this rapidly changing consumer behavior. To review your rules, there's so many different bid automations and rules out there. If you are using a software, again, you could just talk to your software provider, ask them how they adjust for Prime Day, how do these rules work, just make sure it's going to make sense for you. All right, and this is a crucial one. This will save you tons of wasted ad spend. Clean up your ad structure. Absolutely. So how do you do this? You want to pause underperforming products. If you have campaigns that have a whole bunch of different variations in them and you're advertising all of their variations and some of them haven't been working as well and you have your best performing variations, clean up that ad structure. Again, ideally, all of these cleanup measures should happen a couple weeks before Prime Day, so you're in a good position, but you haven't screwed something up and you have, consistent data to validate if, oh wait, maybe that was a good performer. You don't want to be down to the wire with these adjustments is what I would say. Other things, now this is just good practice, but you definitely want to look at it before Prime Day. Add negative keywords to non-performing searches. Negative keywords all the way. Where am I wasting money? How can I make sure I don't waste that money when I'm going to get more clicks on it, right? Pause dormant campaigns. If you have some things, you're testing them, but they're not really getting any clicks, the spend isn't really there, you haven't really validated it, pause at the days of Prime Day. Get rid of it. We're honing in on the best of the best, the things that work, right? Anything that's dormant, pause it. Check all of your placement percentages. I cannot tell you how many ad accounts I have been in where I'm looking at the placement percentages. Somebody set it up a little while ago. Nobody ever checked it. It's sitting there. Make sure your placements make sense. You want them fully validated, fully vetted, fully in line with the current performance. This is not something you don't want to have exponential increases on your cost per click day of if they no longer make sense. Do that. Another huge one, another huge one, huge potential for waste here. Easy to fix, but you got to know to look for it. Check all of your zero impression high bid targets and perform what we call a bid reset. In a lot of accounts, it is very, very normal Good practice, right? I have a target that is getting 0 impressions. I must increase the bid to therefore get more impressions. Good practice makes sense until it doesn't anymore, because there are multiple reasons. Maybe the search volume is low, maybe the campaign budget's running out for this campaign, a whole bunch of different times where we will look at 0 impressions and increase bid, especially if this is on some sort of bid automation or just like normal system. The bids on these targets can very easily become out of control. I have seen $25 bids, I've seen $15 bids, I've seen $85 bids, because someone said, oh, this is getting no impressions, i.e. must increase bid, and they never paid attention to how high these bids are getting. So easy for these to pop off during the days of Prime Day, completely obliterate budgets. It's scary when it happens. Don't let this happen to you. So what are you going to do? How do you do a bid reset? All you want to do is you can go into the targeting tab, or you can use a bulk file. You're going to check for things that have 0 low impressions, low amount of clicks, and very high bids. So you're filtering for things that have no orders, because we don't even have any ACoS to go off of, right? Or maybe we're looking for high ACoS. We're looking for all the things with limited amounts of data, and then we're sorting by bids. And this will bring to the top everything that has a really high bid, that has a low amount of data, that you've probably been continuously increasing to try and get that data. But again, Prime days are not the days to test things. They're the days to capitalize on all of the testing you've already done. So what you want to do is identify what is a reasonable starting bid for this product, or in some instances you might just set really low bids and pause these. It is up to you, depending on what you want to do with your product and your account. But what I would do is I would say, okay, what does my bid need to be given the average conversion rate for this product and my target ACoS? And then just reset all of those bids to that. So you're basically just setting them back to square one. Yes, we're not testing them, but like I told you, it is not the time to perform aggressive testing. And so this is going to be another one. This will be dependent on budgets. There are some accounts where, and again, if you've been managing an account, or you've been in the account, or you can look back historically, or you can get feedback from the client, or, you know, like the brand owner looking back at past Prime days. There are certain accounts where the spend will absolutely go bonkers days of, right? You can, again, this is highly dependent on the account and the strategy and the budget that you want. But you can consider implementing an account cap as sort of a fail-safe mechanism to control the spend. And when I say account cap, I'm not saying cap the budget's really low. I'm saying what would be an astronomical increase and how can I hedge against that? So if I only want to spend, say, like 2x on my budget, I might put an account cap that's slightly above what that 2x budget would be, just so if my account goes crazy day 1, I have time to correct for it on day 2, but I know I'm not going to end up with like a 10x budget when that's not something I'm comfortable with. Again, also keep in mind that Amazon can have up to a 25% increase on those budget caps, and those budget caps also do not include sponsored display and sponsored brand ads. So there's only so much control you have over here, but sometimes it's nice to have, again, sort of like a fail-safe mechanism. You put it higher than where you really would want to cut something off, so you're not restricting the account, but if something goes crazy, your account cap will kick in, so you can actually catch it. Again, identify and adjust campaigns with day parting rules. Day parting makes sense, again, if you have consistent data, but if you have a shopper frenzy and a lot of people shopping during the evening, your day parting rules may not make sense. So what you want to do is identify them and make a sort of adjustment plan for days of Prime Day. Again, check all the bidding strategies to make sure they're performing well. Bidding strategies, I mean by, do you have dynamic up and down bidding? Do you have maybe like ROAS focused bidding? Things that may not make sense days of Prime Day. You want to look back at those campaigns and say, does this bidding strategy make sense? Is it within the best interest of those campaigns? And then make adjustments as needed. Again, all of these testing adjustments ideally are done and completed and analyzed at least 1 week before Prime Day. And again, check all ad creatives, make sure that things are up to date, make sure they're performing well, make sure click-through rates are good. Again, You don't want to get down to the wire with these adjustments on, things that historically may be okay. If something's historically okay, leave it. But if you have to make adjustments, again, you want to validate that those adjustments do in fact improve the campaigns, not down to the wire. Another thing you want to do is you want to download some reports before you start making all of these crazy changes. Specifically, you want to download and archive a bulk file because this will preserve the pre-changes in your account structure. So this will record things like if you pause things, it will record the things, what things were previously active in the account. If you do this whole bid reset thing and you want to revert those bids, it will keep an archive of what those bids were previously. And so that is sort of really important to sort of preserve that, again, previous account structure, and make sure if something happens, you always have the ability to quickly perform a reset on the account to exactly what it was pre-changes. And then you also want to download a search term report so you have a snapshot of what historically has worked outside of Prime Day. There will be specific things that work during Prime Day, and post Prime Day, we will be downloading reports to sort of archive what happened pre-Prime Day. So when we go back next year to do this analysis, we have that information at hand. But Prime Day may also skew some of your performance on a search term level. And so in that case, you want to make sure that you're preserving what historically has worked for you in a report that if you want to go check it, it has clean data associated with it. All right. And these are the don't do's. The do not do's. Do not do the last minute creations of campaigns. Again, if you have no other option, maybe, but this is not the time to fly blind. You want to make sure that all testing is done at least one solid week before Prime Day. Don't set aggressive bids or budgets a few days before. I know Amazon is telling everyone that there's a lot of shoppers on the platform and you should be increasing your budgets to capitalize on that. What we have found is that that is a recipe for a bunch of wasted ad spend, because yes, they are 100% correct that shoppers are on the platform searching. However, they are not converting right now. There's a bunch of window shoppers. And so about 2 to 3 days prior to Prime Day, expect sales to decrease, expect total A cost to shoot up, and expect conversion rates to absolutely plummet. This will correct itself days of Prime Day. But we do not want to be spending a lot of our budgets or spending it a lot in general when nobody's buying. I'm not saying turn off your ads. I'm saying don't increase them. And then there is no need to launch a bunch of, quote, Prime Day keywords. So like, best Prime Day deals or, X for Prime Day, those kind of things. Historically, we haven't seen these work in any accounts. You're simply going to be capitalizing off of the data that you already have and make sure the account is in a good position. All things are buttoned up, so you're not wasting money where you don't need to be, and you know where to focus during Prime Day. Okay, that was the longest portion. Now let's talk about during. The pre can be done in bits and pieces and here and there. The during is time sensitive, but there's going to be very limited things that you need to focus on. So during, no, the data is not going to be real time. So keep in mind, if spend is increasing, even if the sales and the increased ad performance might not be great. So you want to, again, we're basing it off of historic data because we're flying blind. The thing that we can get real time is budgets. We're not going to be getting accurate sales data in real time. So when we're validating if we should increase something, we want to be able to look back at historic data to validate that it makes sense to do those increases. But again, we talked about going back through and identifying the campaigns that you're going to focus on and either leveraging an adjustment in the campaign name or the portfolio to be able to quickly identify those things. So that's what we're going to be doing. So days of, we're going to be monitoring budgets, bar none. The biggest changes you're going to make is increases to campaign budgets. And we want to actually prioritizing increasing budgets over increasing bids. We, in the past, and when I say past 3 years ago or so, used to go through and aggressively increase bids. But what we found is that didn't always necessarily give us as good a performance. However, increasing budgets has proven to give us really great performance. So we prioritize increasing bids over increasing budgets. If the, say, client allocates a bunch of budget, you can actually divide this budget in two and then add the first half in the beginning of the day and then add the second half increased budgets towards the end of the day. So what we're doing all days of Prime Day is we are monitoring our budgets, and then again we are quickly having a way where we can filter for the specific campaigns that we want to make sure remain in budget. And then you will see in real time it says out of budget, and then you can go through and manually add that additional budget increases. And occasionally, if you want to, for main keywords and targets and priority products, you can go through and make sure that you still have a good placement for your ads if it's a priority keyword. So use an incognito window to do the search, see where your ads are showing up. If they're not high enough, then you can go through and do that bid increase. But that's only for like very high priority keywords. Everything else you should be totally fine to increase your budgets. And do not set high bids on broader targets, or at least be careful. I'm talking about broad match campaigns, especially now with the update, auto campaigns, category targeting campaigns. These types of ads have a great potential to target a whole bunch of different search terms. And again, data is not real time. We have no idea what it's targeting, and cost could be very great. You want to be very careful with this. Ideally, we're focused again on the things that work, but we're not massively increasing our bids, especially if it's a broader target. And that's what we're doing during. So you want to be checking your account frequently. You want to be adjusting and tweaking budgets frequently. You want to be looking at your high priority things. You can also look at, if you go into business reports, not on a per product level, but on an overall account level, you will see sort of real-time sales. So you can also validate those things there. So it's very time intensive as far as how often you want to check things, but the amount of things you're doing and actions is going to be very limited, again, mainly to budgets. All right. And then afterwards, I will take a note. No, sometimes it can be beneficial to wait a few days afterwards if the performance continues. So this is what we're doing. We're probably going to reset the account to the settings we had before pre-Prime Day. I remember I said like we paused things, we maybe limited our tests, maybe we decreased our budgets on things that, we had kind of been testing out before. Again, we're going back to our routine sort of status quo, typical ad strategies that we had before, which means we're testing things, we're making sure the account has good visibility and things like that. Also, we're probably lowering some of the budgets that we exponentially increase because we no longer makes sense to just spend as much as the days of Prime Day. Although I will say sometimes it can be beneficial to wait a few days afterwards if the performance continues. How do you validate that? Use sales as an indicator if things are still, quote, working. Business reports are going to be the most up to date for this. Again, data inside of Ad Manager is not real time. So you want to validate through business reports that yes, sales are still elevated. If sales are not still elevated, then that's the time that we want to make sure that we're making those readjustments so we're not continuously overspending and driving up total cost in the account. You also want to archive reports to be analyzed next year. The reports that you want to archive, you want to make sure you're archiving a bulk file. You want to archive search term reports. Again, we're just pulling the days of Prime Day here so we can go back and use these reports to analyze and make adjustments for next year. We're looking at search term reports for all of our ad types. We want to archive a business report, specifically the business reports that are going to give us SKU level information as to what was the best seller days of Prime Day and which had the best conversion rates. Super important. And you also want to look at the search query performance report when that updates to again make sure that we have an idea next time what works well for our products. And the very last don't do is make a massive adjustments to ads without data to back decisions. So again, we don't want a knee-jerk reaction, completely revert the account if sales are still elevated. If sales are not in fact elevated, we're not seeing that sort of residual sales performance, then that's when we want to go back through and make sure that we're resetting the account to where it was before before we made all those decisions. Although some of those decisions, I will say, when it comes to like adding the negatives or pausing things that were underperforming, may have made sense. So really, when you're going through and you're doing all of that pre-work, I recommend taking extensive notes, archiving reports, make it easy for yourself post Prime Day to go through and perform that reset. Your future self will thank you if you make it easier on yourself. So just make sure that you're using really intentional strategies. Some good intentional strategies are, of course, leveraging portfolios, adjusting naming when you're making changes. Depends if you're making these manually inside of ad console. Another thing that you can do is, instead of like fully pausing a keyword, so for an example, if you pause the keyword, it's hard to know if you just decided, I no longer want to run this test for the limited days of Prime Day, or if it was paused due to, say, historical poor performance. So if there's keywords that you want to limit the ad spend for, but you still want to go back and retest, what we do is we will select some sort of specific bid. So it could be like a 2-cent bid, 3-cent bid, something that we would never really use historically as like an actual bid for a keyword, but can be signaled to say, oh, that was the reason in which we did this. So if you say, okay, for all my 3-cent bids, these are the things that I want to go back and revisit. For my 4-cent bids, these were the things that had gotten a lot of clicks, but I hadn't really validated, I didn't get enough clicks, those kind of things. And then when you go back through and you reset, you can just say, oh, where's my 3-cent bids? Where's my 5-cent bids? And then that sort of allows you to identify the logic you used when you went through and made those changes, which again can help in the reversion process when you want to go back through and go back to where things were for the next half of the summer until we hit Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Because this strategy, while it works very well for Prime Day, is the exact same playbook and strategy that we run for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or really any of our tentpole days. So again, if you have any further questions on Prime Day strategy, make sure you leave them in the comments below. And if you would like a copy of this doc, make sure you check the link in the description.